game I just played was somewhat bad, but not enough to warrant the worst list. Just think of this list as the middle ground between the best and the worst, as I'm not saying all these games I've listed are completely terrible. There are some good aspects about these games, but because the negatives weighed them down a little bit, I didn't wholeheartedly enjoy the entire experience than what I expected. I'm judging these games from how much it disappointed me, not from whether or not I felt the game was good or not. So if I had a high expectation for a game and it dashed down the negatives real quickly, then I consider that more disappointing than a good game turning into a mediocre one. And remember, this is a list of what I played in 2015, not games that released in 2015, just in case anyone's confused. Anyways, this is the top 10 disappointing games I played in 2015. There's nothing more devastating than revisiting one of your favorite games you played as a child, and then realizing that game doesn't live up to par with your expectations. It really pains me to put a game I used to enjoy on this list because I remember the enjoyment I had when I played this game 2 years ago, and a part of me still wishes I can put this game on the best list. But unfortunately, with the amount of awkward pacing I had to deal with and some of the most unimaginable mini-games, I looked down upon the game more than I can really dig deep into it. It also didn't help that I played this game on the hardest difficulty for my return and found the game to be a complete cakewalk. At least compared to other beat-em-ups and hack-and-slash games. There was only one time I ever died in this game, and it was because of this stupid minigame where I had to control this raft upstream. The majority of the enemies can easily be killed using your pom-pom attacks to stun and hit them with the heavy attacks, and if the enemies are immune to dizziness, just spam the Y button. Now that's not to say it's a complete train wreck though, like I've said before, the humor is still hilarious. Seeing Julia and her decapitated boyfriend interact with her family members just brings out the chuckle out of me. And some of the over-the-top moments are very well entertaining. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough for me to consider this game off of the disappointing entry. It was fun while it lasted, but I think this game was only worth a rental. Unless you're a huge Suda 51 fan, maybe buy this game at $15. I rarely watch a whole lot of movies. I'm more of a video game guy myself, obvious reasons obvious, but I found myself watching a whole lot of movies this year. Not just the recent ones, but more of the old school movies too. I've seen them all, the good ones, the hilarious ones, the epic ones, and the ones that just want to fucking melt at the bottom of the earth crust! Okay, base, just calm down, and just let it go. Wait, I'm bringing up the topic of movies because the next game I'm mentioning is indeed a movie license game. And while the majority of those games tend to be pretty bad, if South Park The Stick of Truth has taught me anything, is that a license-based game can be fantastic if taking good care of its source material. This next game on the number 9 segment, on the other hand, is not awesome. It's not awesome. When it comes to LEGO video games, I tend to enjoy the ones I've played so far. Before the LEGO movie, my only exposure to the LEGO games were LEGO City Undercover and LEGO Marvel Superheroes, both games I really enjoy. I will say though, compared to any other movie licensed games I played, this one is not bad whatsoever, but it's very underwhelming when compared to the previous LEGO games. From what I've played, the LEGO movie, the video game, is more of the same of LEGO Marvel. Linear platforming, obstacles, and enemies. You go from point A to point B. There is somewhat of an open world in LEGO Movie, but it's so tiny and barren there's really no point in the worlds you reach. I feel as though with any LEGO game, it's only fun the first time you play through it. I can't confirm this though since I've only played 2 LEGO games with linear pathways, but from the forums I've read, the LEGO video games are no different than Call of Duty games. In terms of the game's functionality, I do experience some glitches which forced me to restart the entire game, and there was even one instant where the game crashed on me. But aside from that, the game still runs at a perfectly fine 60 frames per second. And most of the issues I had were mostly because I was playing the Xbox One version, which is considered the worst port. Graphically, it looks okay if it was a Wii U game, but I'm playing this on the Xbox One, and I'm willing to bet that every version looks the exact same. I also have problems with how the cutscenes are paced. They follow alongside with the movie, but they're so stripped down. Like this chase scene. In the movie, it was a quick, fast-paced action sequence, but in this game, it's a slow, monotonous, on-rail shooter. I wouldn't say this game was bad by any means though. There are some sections where I thought was really clever. The game is brimming with fan service, and I do enjoy when those moments occur. I also really enjoy the co-op aspect as well. In case you want a friend to tag along, you can do so and they don't really hinder the experience, nor do they make the game a complete cakewalk, although they can be assholes at times. This game was just completely average. Something your kids can tolerate and enjoy, but nothing too spectacular. I'd say wait for a price drop or ignore altogether. When it comes to games I want people to recommend me, I always ask my friends to tell me what game they think I'll enjoy. This year, everybody recommended me the same game over and over and over again. Codename Kid Icarus Uprising. I was gonna give it a chance eventually, but there were a lot of circumstances that stopped me from even getting the game in the first place. First off, this game is out of print, meaning if I want to buy a game brand new, I would have to pay over $60 for it. I heard that the game had a very difficult control scheme, especially for left-handers. Guess which hand I right with. Everyone convinced me that Kid Icarus Uprising is a fantastic game, as if it's one of the best Nintendo 3DS games they could have ever played. And to be frankly honest, I don't see why. I will say that this type of video game is pretty good for a handheld. When playing on the go, I won't be too focused on marathoning the game, but instead playing the game in spurts. In that mindset, it's a very fun third-person shooter that I can casually play when I go back home, go to friend's house, go to school, etc, etc. And for a 3DS game, this looks amazing. Graphically, it's one of the best 3DS games I've ever seen. The environment, the scenery, it just oozes in spectacle. And all the character skits are hilarious, Palutena being my favorite character just for her trollish demeanor. These skits ridicule each character, their personalities, the game itself, other video game characters. In terms of comedy, I don't think I've laughed as hard as I have with these characters. If only I can actually hear them though. Unless you're using earphones, hell, even if you're using earphones, the sound balancing is awful. The sound effects for Pit's arrows, Pit's flying, and the enemy sound effects overwrite the comedy sketches. I swear, if it wasn't for the subtitles, I wouldn't be able to understand what these guys are mumbling. And this is on the default setting. I had to turn down the sound effects just to hear the characters properly. Okay, well, the sound settings are something that can easily be nullified, but what can't be nullified? The awful controls. Like I said, I had to buy an attachment just to nullify the already terrible controls, but even with the attachment, the controls are still bad. When you think of a second control stick for a third-person shooter, you naturally think the right stick would aim your reticle. But not in this game! The right stick actually moves the character, and there's no way you can change that. Unless you switch the face buttons for movement and the circle pad to aim. But now I have to place my left thumb on the face buttons? Yeah, no thanks. This issue would have been nullified if the right stick would actually aim rather than mimic what the left stick is doing. And I don't see why aiming with the right stick wasn't considered as an option. I guess I could use the touchscreen with my thumb and act as if that was the right stick, but it doesn't have the same feeling as aiming with an actual control stick. It's like those third-person shooting games on iPhone. The feel of the touchscreen can't replicate what the control stick can do. Even if the control scheme was fixed though, the game is repetitive. You run, you shoot, that's it. There's no strategy, no tactics, you go from point A to point B. Kill the boss, and then proceed to the next chapter. There are some chapters that implement some sort of trickery or puzzles, but they're easy to figure out. I found them really gimmicky if anything. The boss battles are no different. In fact, I actually found them easier than the stage before the boss battles. You just keep shooting the enemies until they die, and that's about it. I can understand the praise it gets from the characters' interaction with one another, but I fail to see why so many people, including my friends, consider Kid Icarus Uprising as one of the best 3DS games ever created. It's okay, but I wouldn't even consider putting this game on my top 10 list. This goes to show, hyping a game too much may backfire if you don't fulfill on that promise. $30? Okay, yeah, we've heard it all. This game was a ripoff and it should have been released as a demo rather than a $30 game. We've heard the story about how Konami is a greedy son of a gun who wants to milk every single penny onto their poor customers who thought that they would get a satisfying game when in actuality, even this very own countdown lasts longer than what Ground Zeroes has to offer. And yet, here we are in the disappointing list rather than the worst list. With all due honesty, Ground Zeroes wasn't a bad game as everyone on the internet has pointed out. It's functional, it looks amazing, and some of the side missions are interesting. But the story was bare bones, the replay value is non-existent, and the difficulty wasn't even that hard. Hard mode feels no different than normal mode, most of the side missions are just plain boring, and the main mission itself is the easiest mission to S-rank. I like the Deja Vu and Jamais Vu missions, but at the cost of $30? This entire package is not worth the price. Now that's not to say that there's no reason you shouldn't pick it up. Any Metal Gear fan should definitely get a taste of what the Phantom Pain has in stores whenever that releases. Oh wait, it's already out? Okay, so now that the full game is out, why not buy that game instead of a glorified demo? Or at best, pirate the game and send your $60 to Kojima's address. Because God knows how Konami's been doing the past decade. I'd say wait until the game is free on PlayStation Plus or Xbox Live Gold if you really want to play Ground Zeroes. Otherwise, just play Phantom Pain as it gives you over 500 times more content at only twice the value of Ground Zeroes. Kingdom Hearts. I think I've stated real clearly that my first experience with the series was not a very pleasant one. I found the characters to be stupid, the story to be both confusing and forgetful, and the gameplay to be one of the laziest hack and slash games ever created. So I don't have any positive expectations when I played Kingdom Hearts 2.
And since I finished Kingdom Hearts 2 this year, I can safely say that Kingdom Hearts 2 was a surprisingly huge contrast to the first game.
Kingdom Hearts 2 from my experience was actually pretty fun. I still dislike Sora as a character and the story didn't toss any heads for me, with the exception of one particular scene. This guy right here, his name is Roxas. Being tormented by his past relations with the organization, he has suffered from a huge identity crisis. I surprisingly felt a lot of emotion attached to this character, especially with the scene that reveals his backstory. I felt that this series should have starred him instead, since I found him to be a more interesting character out of any character Kingdom Hearts created.
Little did I know, there actually is a game by the name of Kingdom Hearts 358 2 Days, where it actually stars Roxas and what he had to go through the organization. So, what did I think about it? Well, you're watching the disappointing list, what the hell do you think?
Kingdom Hearts 358 divided by 2 days was a huge letdown to what I was originally invested in. With the way Roxas was tormented in Kingdom Hearts 2, I wanted to learn more about him and his character, see what he was like during the organization and why he left to pursue a new life. Instead of a deeply wounded character, we get a person who I swear was lobotomized day 1 in the organization. Kingdom Hearts 179 Days essentially ruined Roxas for me. He was nothing more than another emo Final Fantasy character. The other characters in the organization are no better. Really, the only characters I actually really enjoy was Axel. He's a funny goofball and a legitimately good friend. He's a wise asshole, but a lovable one at that, and for a species in which all nobodies have no hearts, this guy is quite the emotional type.
Though to be fair, Kingdom Hearts for me was never about the story. What matters is how the gameplay works. So what do I think about that? It's okay.
Kingdom Hearts 20 x 8.95 days got some things improved, like the targeting system, and for a DS game, they made the game surprisingly controllable. It might be because I'm playing this game on a 3DS with a circle pad, but I continuously mistake the D-pad with menu navigation, so every time I try to switch my tabs, I keep moving backwards. I also like how this game was a lot more mission-based rather than open-world-based, though the missions themselves depend on what mission types they are. I'm not a huge fan of the investigation missions, but I do like these speedrunning training missions. Partners are also mixed for me. Some of the organization members are badass and get me out of a pinch, but some also does absolutely nothing to help me or the mission. I'm looking at you, Zion. But overall, I wouldn't say this game was a complete disaster. To me, Kingdom Hearts 41st Prime Number Days is just another Kingdom Hearts game with a very stupid title. "2015 was the year in which I finally caught up with the Batman Arkham series. I remember playing Arkham Asylum, but for some reason I stopped playing it for a while. I eventually got back into finishing the game so I can play Arkham City. As a sequel to Arkham Asylum, it definitely shows. The stealth sequences build up the tension, the overworld is filled with so much to do, and the lore of Batman and his villains are always entertaining to watch. The next game in the trilogy was supposed to be Arkham Knight once it releases, but I wanted to try out Arkham Origins. A lot of people from what I've seen saw Arkham Origins as a disappointment, and I can agree to that, but I still had a lot of fun playing through it. The combat system was the only improvement from what I've saw, while everything else was pretty much the same as Arkham City. But I still enjoy the villains, the story, and they kept me wanting to play through the game. Arkham Origins was a downgrade compared to Arkham City, but I didn't find the game a huge disappointment. That's where Arkham Knight comes in. Arkham Knight was supposed to be the last game in the Arkham series, so of course it had a lot of hype built into it. After my Batman marathon with Arkham Asylum through Arkham Origins, I was